So we'll get there step by step, just like we do, but we'll start on your backs with your heads towards the center and your 3 friends with you at the side. So we'll, if you like, starting your breath work with the parent-tote underneath at the base of the skull, you can do that, or you can keep it to the side to start, whichever meets your needs right now. And whether you have your legs extended out long or feet flat on the floor is fine. And we'll again bring your breath in and down all the way to the base and feel the breath move up the torso. So there's some main themes that we're bringing along with us with each one of these practices. And if you leave or finish with nothing but this remembrance of bringing your breath all the way in and down and feeling this responsiveness of your body to your breath throughout the torso, you'll still have gotten so much benefit, life-changing benefit from these practices. And we'll bring your hands now to the space just below the ribs, right? Just under the sternum. So it's like your rib cage comes up, and then there's the sternum in the center. And bring your hands down just to that soft place, just below the sternum between the ribs there. And just bring your fingers to touch in the center, and then gently press your fingers, the first knuckle of your fingers, just the tips of your fingers, gently in. So right here under the heart, and then see if you can make emphasis to breathe into that sensation. And as you exhale, keep the gentle pressure and really exhale a lot. And see if you can just feel a little bit of release in the diaphragm there, and keep that going for 5 or 6 breaths. Gentle pressure from the fingertips. Breathe in and down and into it, and as you exhale, soften around it. Again, in and down, fill. Exhale, soften around it. And then you can bring your fingers a little bit wider apart from each other, staying just under your ribs. So you're not like trying to get under the ribs, but just underneath the ribs, applying gentle pressure. Inhale into that pressure, and exhale. Really exhale a lot and soften as much as you can there. So you're applying the amount of pressure that feels right to you. And just gently taking note if there feels like some tightness or some tenderness in the diaphragm. Working here can bring a lot of benefit with gentle release. So this is a similar work as we did with the gorgeous ball in the abdomen, but now the feedback is your fingertips. And these are available anytime, anywhere. So if you start to notice that you're not breathing, it's likely that there's some gripping through the abdomen and some tightening of the diaphragm. And so making this effort to move your breath big and in and down, and move the diaphragm all the way down, and then just provide a gentle feedback loop with the pressure of your fingertips for release. Good. And we'll continue this pattern of breath at a natural rhythm as we move into the next step of our soft tissue work, where you'll scoot your parent-tote a little bit down towards the upper traps. So we'll start as high as you can have the balls in place where they won't slide out, and then grab your gorgeous ball and lift the pelvis up and slide that under your sacrum. Good, so starting a little higher than that, Michelle, if it feels okay with the balls. Yeah, or scoot down, that works too. A little bit lower, just there, good. And then the other ball, bring your feet flat to the floor and then slide the other ball. And you might need a little more air in it, but it's to kind of allow you to move a little bit up and back. Does it feel okay under there? More air, okay. So judging if your gorgeous ball needs more air and just sort of taking a few breaths to settle in with the ball wherever it is. And then you can interlace your fingers behind your head and with your hands lift your head. Or you can lift your head and then place it in your hands. But try your best to negotiate between your head and your hands that your hands are doing the work so that all of that center line can soften. And then press through your feet to move the balls down your back. So pushing away and then pulling with your heels and pulling towards. So heels towards your bum to roll back and forth. Just 2 or 3 inches. So we'll take it in sections. Don't feel like you have to get the whole surface area. Just do the top. And if you notice one side's tighter than the other, are you over-efforting with one arm? And could you even the load of your head? You can test this out. You know, holding the head, it really makes it easier to get this gentle roll. But if it feels better to you to put the balls in place and set your head down and just let the relaxation over the balls happen through passivity, either one is good. So as you're pressing and pulling, now which one is it? Push and allow the balls to move down a little bit and focus on the next lower 2 or 3 inches. So now you're off of your upper back and towards the area between your shoulder blades and the scapula. And remembering that it's the nervous system that is holding this tension in the muscle in a specific way. So it's the breath and the softening of the breath that will begin to support a release. It's also good to note and remember that in this soft tissue work session, or any given soft tissue work session, you're only going to be able to get about 4 to 6% change happening. So although sometimes it can feel like more sensation, you know, the better, that's not necessarily the case. Consistency and gentleness are the remedy for tension. Good, and then bringing the balls down another 2 inches or so. So this is really a self-guided thing. If you find a place that's particularly tight and it really lights you up and you want to stay there and try to relax over it for a longer period of time, you can do that. And then catch up and move it down after holding for a bit. Good, so really having that ball in a place where it feels like it holds the weight of your pelvis and allows you to really slide. If you're having everyone looks like they got it, so. So I will often do these things in a mid-afternoon break if I've spent a lot of time on the computer, or as a shift from my workday into the evening to help release this area that's going to build up tension and density of fascia to make it so that you can hold yourself in the position that you need to be at your computer, at your desk, or attending whatever's right in front of you. Good, and we'll start to move a couple more inches down. So now we're getting towards like the bottom of the area of the scapula, so the shoulder blades, towards the bottom of them, between the shoulder blade and the spine. Good. So you can experiment with different positionings of your hands and your arms. Does it give you a bit of a stretch through the chest to let the elbows flare out to the side and broaden across the chest as you sort of support your head still? Or does it feel better to bring the elbows in towards the face, pointed towards the ceiling, and sort of broaden across your back and really stretch those muscles that you're doing soft tissue work on? So if you start to find a spot that's really tense and dense, it can also support releasing it to do a little bit of shoulder movements or shoulder mobility work in the space around you, so you'll start to feel those muscles move and sort of go back and forth over the ball. Good, and so we're continuing to make our way down little by little, so taking the next inch or two down. Now we're getting a little bit under the scapula, but we've still got a few more sections to cover to get all of that area of these erector muscles that support the spine. Okay, another couple inches down. And think about, as you're moving down to this next section, taking the core activation at the mid-ribs while you're there. So taking the action that these muscles can tend to inhibit and containing the ribs as you roll this sort of mid-back. And taking another couple inches down. it feels good to let your head release and just feel the consistent pressure of the balls pressing into the muscles. You could extend your legs out long, keeping the weight of your pelvis on the ball, on your gorgeous ball. Here about another 2 minutes, and then we'll see about this barking dog situation. That's May. Was mute. Chasing birds. All right, and in whatever way makes sense, you could bring your feet flat to the floor to slide the set of balls out, and then the gorgeous ball out, taking whichever one out first makes sense. And extend long. And just see how much can you really broaden across your upper back. And ramp your head. And check in with the palms and ground the palms. And really reach the arms long so that there's no bend at the elbow, just a slight bend. And the palms are broadened. And think about bringing that Brahmana breath now, the breath that fills the rib cage and the upper back and shoulders and then moves down into all of that space that we just worked on. So really now nourish and move that area with breath. High to low breath, filling the lungs, and then emptying completely. Good. Okay, so now we'll take your pair out of their tote. So you'll take one of your balls out of its tote. And you can look towards me for a second. We'll move into some soft tissue work on the side of the hip. So working this whole area of the side of from the iliac crest, under, and the upper glutes with just this one ball at a time. So starting just under the hip, lying over the ball. You could have this cool beachy look. And you can move front to back or up and down gently on this area with the ball in place. So as you're doing soft tissue work like this, you're becoming a tension hunter. So you're trying to find the spots that feel most tight for you and then pause there and relax over them. So I'm using my top leg to move myself so that my bottom leg can stay relaxed and try to soften over the ball. Okay.
Is it also helpful if you can't tolerate that to use
Yeah.
this guide?
Yeah. Yeah, so if that feels like too much intensity, you can use your Coregeous ball in the same area to start to move that tissue and release tension there. Good. So is this area tender for anyone? Yeah. Yeah. Hello, friends.
Shane also went after it.
Yeah.
So.
Good. It's good. Moderation is best. Yeah, so if you're working in this area with your Coregeous ball, you could fill it up a little bit more so it's a little bit fuller and giving a little bit more feedback and density, and then rolling around to the upper glute area.
Or just lay on your mat and whimper.
Okay. Let's see if we can set a little something up here where you're using. So this feels too much.
He worked on that.
Yeah. Okay.
So
All right.
that's I'll get my straw and roll it up more.
Okay. All right, so we won't spend long here because it's so intense. Okay, we'll switch sides.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome. It just walked right up. I was like, it just started walking up right there. So huge. Bonnie, did that bridge work that we did this morning bother your ribs when it was just the lower body?
No.
No?
It's the side.
It's the side and moving your arms and your shoulders. Okay, we can modify everything as we go. So I
just can't even.
Yeah, it's like probably a bruise kind of thing, so you don't want to push on it in any way. Okay, last seconds here. Then just lost my thought. Coming onto your stomach. So we'll be face down after rolling out both sides. The outer hip. And you can place your forehead on your forearms, or and we'll take a few breaths here just to breathe in and down. And pay attention to that area that we just rolled out, and just sort of feel the after effects of that work. And then with your upper body staying relaxed, lift your left leg high enough to clear your opposite leg and cross it over behind you. And then keep crossing it until your pelvis lifts up, and then drop your foot back behind you. So if you need an example, look up towards me. So I'm lifting and crossing it over and then dropping my foot towards the floor. So I'm in big hip extension and then dropping my foot down. Good. So this is an effort to lengthen and stretch that area that we just rolled at the front of the hip and the side of the hip. And so the more you're really extending your legs back behind you, or even reaching your left arm up and overhead, so reaching the opposite direction and towards the center of the room. Good. And so this can lengthen all the way up from the front of the hip all the way up and into the diaphragm, especially if you keep dropping your foot towards the floor and reaching it back using the glute. So not in a way that will topple your hips over, but more extension in the front of the hip. Your prop friends. And see if you can drop the foot that way too. Good. Okay, and then roll back onto your stomach. Same thing on the other side. And the more the foot can drop down, the more the stretch will come to the outer hip. And you're using a little bit of core to balance on the side here. And then coming slowly back onto your stomach and bringing your forehead back onto your forearms, and take a few more breaths here and just notice any shifts as you bring your breath in and down low into the belly. Again, Langana breath, really extending the exhales. Okay, and bringing your feet together back behind you so that your inner edge of both feet touch and the tops of the feet are grounding down. Take the action through the legs just like we have learned, and lift the front hip bones slightly. So now the tops of your feet are like the bottoms of your feet as far as engaging in the floor from the inside edge of the ball of your foot to the outside edge of the ball of the foot. And keeping your upper body really relaxed and your inner leg line closed up. See if you can begin to now float the legs back behind you. So lifting the legs back behind, feeling the glutes engage, and just notice if you can keep the mid back soft. And then exhale, lower, and inhale, lift. So your legs are staying extended, and you're really working to keep that mid back soft while the glutes engage. Good. Lifting on your inhale and lowering on your exhale. Good. So seeing if the work can stay in the lower half. Good. Okay, and exhale, come down, release that effort, shake it out a little bit, rock your pelvis side to side, and bring your right leg out to a creeping position on the right side. So the knee is out to the side and the ankle straight down from the hip. And then bring your left arm up overhead and your right arm out to the side, and we'll take that twisting action. So lifting the head and the hand, opening up and twisting the thoracic as you keep your weight down with the knee, and twisting as far as you can and let your head relax down and let the arms start to relax down. So we'll be here for a few deep breaths in this rotation, stretching the chest, the side body, the neck. Good, and then exhaling, coming down, back to the starting position, and in a smooth way, switching sides. So bringing the arm back, or the arm up and the leg back, and switching sides, and then inhale, lifting and rotating. Good, so gazing your eyes towards your fingertips as you rotate open. Reaching the palm back, feeling more and more space in the chest. And if you'd like, thinking about moving towards a Brahmana breath here, so filling in the chest to add to the sense of stretch through the filling of the lungs. All right, and then coming back down and taking your leg back behind you, grounding through the tops of the feet again, and sliding your hands back so that you're like in a push-up-esque position. So wide palms and your elbows pointing towards the ceiling with the forehead down. So look towards me if you're not sure. Wide palms on the ground, foreheads down. And in this position with the elbows up, we'll take some shoulder circles. So circling the shoulders up towards your ears and then back and down and around, and continue in that way in some rhythm with the breath. So inhaling up and exhaling down and around. Emily, it's really in this exhaling down and around where you'll start to feel that lower trap area activate. So you're really pulling the scapula down with this action. Good. I can see you moving it there. This is a good one for you. So how much movement can you get in the shoulder complex, the shoulder socket and the shoulder blades, lifting and then squeezing together in the back as you retract your scapula down using the lats, and then release that action to let the heads of the arm bones come forward, and then engaging the upper traps to squeeze the shoulders up and back and around. Good, and then releasing that effort and having your hands right underneath your shoulders, grounding through the tops of the feet, engaging the glutes in the low body. Keep the knees down and your core actions in place to see if you can press up and back to all fours without having your core actions break. So we're going to be working this range of motion a few times. So now your core actions are in action, with the spine floating, glutes engaged, tops of the feet, grounding down supports to lift the spine as a single unit. Then you can shift back into all fours. So we're going for the whole spine getting pressed up at once. So lifting the front hip bones and containing at the ribs to really put those core actions into practice. Good. Do you feel that moment where it starts to kind of be like peeling up? See if you can press up as a single unit, and it takes a lot of core containment in the front. Good. And then next time you press up, come up and back into child's pose. So hips towards the heels and relax down. Good. So feeling now the spine in gentle arch. And possibly bending the bringing the chin towards the chest and bringing closer to the top of the head to be in contact with the floor, so that you're really getting big flexion in the spine. Good. Okay, and then pressing up, tucking your toes, we'll just sort of come into standing through tucking the toes and walking the hands back and then pressing up to standing. Take your single ball, mine rolled off somewhere, and we'll roll out the feet. So before we start, let's come to standing and try the core actions with your feet on the ground, with your eyes on them so you can see them. So grounding the ball of the foot and lifting all the toes, and then broadening across the ball of the foot and grounding the big toe, and then letting that action wrap around the outside edge of the foot to the inside edge of the foot, and the other toes sort of stay lifted. So this is a really active arch is what we're going for. So if you were to look at my feet, no activity, I'm standing, it's fine. But if I lift and engage my arch and broaden across my feet, look what happened to my knees and my hips. I'm going to do it again. So nothing, broadening across. So my knee changed position, the upper glutes fanned out, and all of this support came online to help my standing posture. So engaging the feet in this way is really important. And we'll get more into it, but just feel how that feels before we roll your feet. So check in there. And then we'll start with the right foot with your ball in front of you. If you need to use a pole in any way, you can hold the pole. But we'll start with the ball of the foot and the heel grounded and just sort of roll back and forth across the ball of the foot with the heel down. Whoop. So you're kind of sending some of your weight forward over it to add more pressure. To see if you can get the bones of the toes to kind of mold over the ball. Good, and then we'll roll back and forth across the arch. So in the same way as all the other places we've gotten into, you're searching for the tight spots and holding, taking a few breaths at the places that feel particularly tense or dense. And then we'll roll back to the place where the arch meets the heel and just take a step down onto the ball and see if you can soften. Good, and then back off of it, and we can roll across the heel a little bit, side to side with the ball of the foot down. Good. And then roll all the way back towards the toes and see if you can catch your toes, but keep the ball, take the ball of the foot down. So you're stretching your toes back. If your toes are really bendy, you might not feel this much, but or you could just do the big toe. Okay, and then release and come back to standing. This is a side-by-side comparison. So that was probably, I don't know, 2 minutes of soft tissue work on the foot. So not much time at all. But now take the action with both feet again. And notice the sensation side to side. For me, it feels as though more surface area of the foot that I rolled is in contact with the floor. And it just feels significantly more able to broaden and stabilize. Anybody feel anything like that? Okay, on to the other side. So I keep one of these, well, they're really all around me. And so then I just see one, I'm like, okay, fine. But at my work area so that I can roll out my feet at different junctures of the day. And for me, I grew up playing basketball in shoes that were not long before they were too small again. And so very tight and restricted. So this work and all this different focus on the feet has been really important for my stability and my postures and my balancing of my earth element. Good, and then we'll roll back and forth on the arch. You can do this with lacrosse balls. It's very, I like the give that these have a little bit more than that intensity. Good, and then roll to the back of the arch, and you see if it feels okay to just kind of put your weight down on that and then soften around it. How's your headache, Abby? Any change in that? Still a little there. All right, and then back to the heel with the ball of the foot down, just rolling over that fascia around the base of the back of the heel. And then rolling up towards the toes and stretching the bottom of the foot by lifting the toes. Okay, and then scooting your ball off to the side and coming just to the center of your mat somewhere. And looking down, take all the actions of an active foot. So ground through the ball of the foot, ground the big toe, broaden across the foot, and ground the pinky toe, and then wrap it around. And then bring your attention up the leg and think about taking the next core action of balancing the pelvis. So engage the glutes, and maybe taking a few different pelvic tilts will help you find what feels like a balanced pelvis that we experienced on the ground. And then check back in with your feet and see if you can broaden them or activate them in some other way. What you notice as a place that tends to give out, so say some pronation in a particular foot. Whoa. That's going to be something that you'll have to continually watch out for and reactivate over the course of this practice. But over time, it will help strengthen the arch and keep that from happening. Then the rib cage stacks on top of the hip bones. The shoulders broaden. So you're taking that same activation across and bringing the scapula slightly down. And then palms can either face back or forward, but they're gently broadened with minimal muscular effort. And then the head ramps on top, chin towards the center of the throat, extension up through the back of the crown. Good, and with all the core actions in place, lean forward, bringing the weight onto the balls of your feet. Maybe your toes grip up a little bit to hold you, and then lean back. And keep going with that lean a few times. Lean forward, feel your front body engage, and lean back, feel your back body engage. Good. So now start to make that leaning action smaller and smaller, and try to feel for when you're centered right over your feet. So it feels like your whole structure is balanced over a foot that's grounded through all four corners. Good, and then bring your palms to face your hips and keep them broadened and all of that engaged. And on an inhale, maintaining the core actions, bring the arms up in front, and we'll explore maintaining the rib containment while finding the edge or range of motion in the shoulder. On the exhale, coming back down. So feet stay stabilized and grounded as you inhale, arms come up to the edge of your range of motion. Exhale, arms come down. So can you find effortless effort through engaging the lower body stably, and then keep the core contained to find the edge or range of motion in your shoulder. Okay, and then next time that you inhale and your arms are up overhead, hold them there. So we'll hold in stillness, keeping the breath flowing in a Brahmana pattern. So inhale, fill the area of the upper back and shoulders. Breath moves down, and exhale, breath leaves the body. Can focus on a single point with your eyes, holding a drishti, and remember the mouth containment that we've learned. Tongue flat and broad on the roof of the mouth, teeth slightly parted, lips touching. See if you can hold this effort with that open core at your center. Good. And on an inhale, reach up like you're extending through your side bodies and reaching up even more. And on an exhale, bend the knees slightly as you drop your arms. Sort of just let the arms shake out and the knees bend. Good, and then coming to stillness. Take all the core actions again, and we'll move into a little flow with the arms. So inhale, both arms come up. Exhale, front hip bones stay pointed forward. Your left hand comes to the center of the chest as your right arm turns and is behind you. Your head turns to look at it. So this is your exhale. This is your inhale, switching sides on the next exhale. So as you're continuing to find this flow with your own breath, see if you can really emphasize that the pelvis stays pointing forward and the rotation that happens in the rib cage, and the gaze goes with the fingertips. Good, keep going at your pace. Good, and next time that you go to the left and come back to center, exhale, and then inhale, reach up again, and then we'll do that same swing down with the knee bend, and then sort of keep the knee bend and the arm swing going. Good, and then let that come to stillness and come into standing. And bring breath into the upper back and shoulders. So find stillness and a Brahmana breath pattern. Check in with your feet and just take the minimalists of efforts to stabilize. And think about the engagement of the glutes to stabilize the pelvis. Feel your low body really stable and solid. Making an effort to find a position that you could hold and maintain. Focusing the eyes on a single point and containing at the mouth. Good. We'll bring a hand to the low belly and a hand to the chest. So let's say left hand to the low belly, right hand to the chest. We'll move into our chair actions. So the lower body moves first and the hips go back. And you're lowering down as far as you can go where you're able to maintain your core actions in place on an exhale, and on an inhale, pressing up through the feet and coming back to standing. Good. So this is your flow, your rhythm, your vinyasa. Exhaling into chair, finding a squat where you're able to keep the inner leg line engaged and the knees in alignment through the stability at the foot. If it starts to feel unstable, remember foot, stable foot. So the first action of the hips is back, but it's not a drop of releasing of the pelvis to send the butt back. It's a hinge at the hip, and your whole torso is moving back. And your hands are a cue to feel if there's a break in your core actions. So I'm noticing that your knee is dropping in and there's some pronation in this foot. So I need to help by adding this as a guide for your feet. So thinking about that being a big emphasis of your foot alignment, as if there were a block there. And now give it a try, really broadening across the foot, sending the hips back. Good, and that already kept that knee from shifting inwards. So really think about hips back, hinge this way, so your shin almost stays straight up and down as you go back. Good, there. Okay. When you get there, shift your weight towards your heels and see how that feels. So taking it down. Good, shift weight towards your heels. Good, and then back up. Bring your feet to the inside edge of that. Good. And use that as a cue for your foot alignment and try it there. Good. Okay, next time you come up to standing, find your stable, steady posture with gentle core actions. And your mouth containment and eye containment, and bring breath in and down all the way to your roots. So moving to a Longana breath pattern, feeling low to high. Good, and now we'll combine the movements on an inhale. Arms go up as the hips go back. So you're finding now that with the arms overhead, you'll come to a point where it's much easier to let all that spilling action happen. So you'll really have to find the edge of how far you can take the arms overhead and still send the hips back first and then coming back up. So now matching the action of the lower body and the upper body and the breath all together. Thinking about the back of the neck staying long. So finding a place in front of you to hold your drishti or your gaze so that you're not kind of extended or crunching the back of your neck, but keeping it extended long. Good. And if it feels simple or easy, slow down. How slow can you go? Not how low, how slow. Good. Really think about keeping your arms extended in two directions. So there's just barely a bend at the elbow and your hands are activated, energized, broadened. So really keep the ribs moving towards the back body so that you're not losing that rib containment. Okay, come into standing and hold for a breath or two, and then we'll move into a single bridge or a single chair hold. So coming down as low as feels comfortably possible, really broadening across the feet and broadening the hands, and finding a stable position that you could hold for 5 or 6 breaths. Brahmana breaths into the upper back and shoulders. If it feels like you want to come out, could you just come out a little and stay? And a big inhale, and on an exhale, coming out, stepping your feet nice and wide, and then we'll take a little twist so the back heel can come up. But really thinking about twisting out any of the tension that developed in the upper back and shoulders. Okay, and settling back in the center. On an inhale, bring again a hand to the low belly and to the chest. And now we'll hinge at the hips and slightly bend the knees as you come forward. So similarly, we're prioritizing the core actions, and the things that you'll tend to see is that the head first is what wants to happen. So now we're really emphasizing the head ramp as you keep the knees bent and the spine contained and bandhas in place. And on an inhale, come up. And on an exhale, moving back into that posture. So flowing in and out a few times, and then we'll again hold. So noticing if your head wants to lead the way or if the rib cage wants to lead the way, and keep the whole spine moving as a unit. And next time that you come down, hold. Really feel the back body engaged, especially in the upper back and shoulders. How can you support holding the head by engaging the scapula back and down? Looking at your feet, seeing active foot. Really broadening to the outside edge of the foot to see if you can bring on additional support from the outer hip where we rolled out. Good. Big inhale, extend through the back of the crown of the head, and on an exhale, bend the knees a lot and let your head and spine come forward. Good. If you can, bend the knees so much that you place the hands on the floor, that's good. And if possible for you, keeping the feet flat to squat down and then place yourself down, or if you need to, come up onto the toes and then set yourself back and down, and then lying back with your heads towards the outside, feet towards the center. Ah, good job. I built a little sweat up. Good So we'll bring the knees into the chest, grabbing behind the thighs and holding the belly and the thigh in contact. Straighten the lower leg as we did earlier, keeping the belly and thigh in close contact, not sacrificing straightening the legs more for that contact of the belly and the thigh. And pull your toes towards your face. Stretch the whole back line, keeping the extension through the back of the crown. Good, and then we'll briefly revisit dead bugs, so bending the knees, bringing the knees right over the hips and the shins parallel to the ground. Contain at the core and lower the legs slow and controlled one time. Use the core and all the stability that you've learned and developed and place your feet down so slowly. Good, and then once your feet come down, heel toe them out wide and windshield wiper the hips side to side. Can add in the turning of the head the opposite direction. So releasing the fronts of the hips that were in lots of flexion with some extension. Okay, and then coming back to center and slowly extending your legs long. And you can gently, internally take the core actions to make sure that you're lined up well for your resting pose before you let the toes drop out to the side and deeply relax the hips. And broaden across the shoulders and bring the palms to face up at your sides. And the head is in the ramping position. We'll move into some breath work, taking a Brahmana inhale into the chest and then down to the belly, and an exhale. And now we'll inhale halfway and pause the breath, and then inhale the rest of the way and pause the breath. And then exhale long, slow, and extended to completely empty. Inhale into the upper back and shoulders, chest, halfway, fill, pause. Another rest of the way, fill, pause, long, slow exhale. So this is your breath rhythm. An inhale, pause, second inhale, pause, extended, long, slow, emptying exhale. So with this halfway pause, experimenting with filling to capacity, but without creating strain or muscle activation. There's all of the action, the starting and the stopping, is happening from the diaphragm. Inhale, halfway, pause, rest of the way, pause, long, extended exhale. Good. Next time you take your 2-part inhale and pause. Hold the inhale paused to your capacity. So hold the inhale in as long as it feels comfortably possible, and then exhale passively. After that, return to a steady single inhale that's in and down low in the belly. Smooth transition to passivity on a complete exhale. Feel your body receptive, receiving your inhale, allowing your exhale, nourished by your breath and your efforts. And for a reference, count how long is your inhale and how long is your exhale, just to notice any shifts that have happened from this focused work that we've been doing in your breath rhythm. Continuing resting and breathing here for as long as you have available. This concludes our guided practice.